My name is Ethan Parker, and for most of my life, I believed that family meant one simple thing no matter how badly things went. Your family would always have your back. I was wrong. I was 34 years old when I learned that sometimes the people sitting closest to you at a family dinner can be the same people secretly hoping to see you fail. I grew up in Ohio with my mother, Linda Parker, my father, Robert Parker, and my younger sister, Sophie. Sophie was always the favorite. She was beautiful, confident, outgoing, and somehow everything she touched seemed to turn into gold. I was different. I was quiet. I worked with my hands. After high school, I started working for a small construction company. I eventually saved enough money to start my own home renovation business. It wasn't glamorous. There were no expensive cars, no fancy office, just an old pickup truck, a small team, and a lot of long days. But I was proud of it. My parents weren't. Whenever Sophie talked about her career, Mom would proudly tell everyone. But whenever someone asked about me, she'd simply say, "Ethan does construction," as if that was something embarrassing. Still, I never stopped loving my family. And that's why I agreed to help pay for part of Sophie's wedding. The wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Instead, it became the day my entire family tried to destroy my dignity. And the strangest part, they didn't know that one person at that wedding already knew the truth. A person I had never met before. A lawyer. And by the end of that night, he would expose everything. The wedding took place at a beautiful country club outside Columbus. There were white flowers everywhere. String lights hung above the outdoor reception area. More than 100 guests had arrived. I remember standing near the entrance when my mother walked toward me. She looked me up and down, then she frowned. "Ethan, you're wearing that?" I looked at my suit. It was an older navy suit I'd bought a few years earlier. "It's clean," I said. She sighed. "Your sister's wedding isn't the place to look cheap." I smiled politely. "Don't worry, Mom, I'll stay out of the way." She leaned closer. "That's probably best." Then she walked away. I stood there for a few seconds, pretending it didn't hurt. But that wasn't even the worst part. During the reception, I sat at a table near the back. Sophie and her husband, Daniel, were surrounded by friends and relatives. Then my uncle stood up with a microphone. He started making jokes about family members. Everyone laughed. Then he looked directly at me. "And of course we have Ethan here tonight." People turned toward me. My uncle smiled. "Still working construction, Ethan?" A few people laughed. I forced a smile. "Yes, Uncle Mark," he continued. "Well, at least someone has to fix things when the rest of us break them." More laughter. I looked down at my plate. Then my cousin shouted, "Maybe Ethan can repair the wedding cake if it falls." Everyone laughed again. I wanted to disappear. But then my father stood up, and what he said next changed the entire room. He looked at me and said, "Ethan, tonight is about Sophie. Please don't make this about yourself." I stared at him. "I haven't said anything." Dad shook his head. "You don't have to." The room became quiet. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Then my mother added, "Just be respectful and don't embarrass the family." I couldn't understand it. I had helped pay for the wedding. I had spent months working extra hours so I could contribute. And now they were treating me like I was the problem. I quietly stood up. "I'm going outside." I walked toward the parking lot. I was trying not to cry. Then I heard someone behind me. He wore a black suit and carried a leather folder. "I don't believe we've met," I said. He extended his hand. "My name is Michael Reed." I shook his hand. "I'm Ethan." He looked at me for a moment. "I know." I frowned. "You know me?" He nodded. "And I think you deserve to know something before you leave this wedding." I stared at him. "What?" He opened his folder, and the first document inside had my father's name on it. I stared at the document. "What is that?" Michael looked around. "Not here." We walked toward a quiet hallway inside the venue. He closed the door behind us. Then he said, "I've represented your father for several years." My stomach dropped. "You're his lawyer?" "Yes." I immediately became defensive. "Did he send you after me?" Michael shook his head. "No." "Then why are you showing me this?" He opened the folder again. "Ethan, your father made a legal agreement several years ago. I didn't understand. What kind of agreement? Michael looked directly into my eyes. Your father placed ownership of the family property into a trust. I blinked. What property? The house in Ohio, the rental properties, and the small commercial building downtown. I was speechless. I knew about the house, but I had no idea about the other properties. Michael continued. Your father didn't tell you because your mother insisted that you shouldn't know. I felt something inside me break. Why? He hesitated. Because they believed you would eventually ask for your share. I laughed bitterly. My share. Michael nodded. The trust names you as the primary beneficiary. I stared at him. That's impossible. No, it's not. He pulled out another document. Your father signed it 6 years ago. I remembered that time. 6 years earlier, my father had asked me to help repair the roof of the family house. I spent 3 weeks working on it. I didn't charge him, not $1. Michael said, your father also left instructions that if anything happened to him, the properties would be divided according to this agreement. I swallowed. So why is my family acting like I have nothing? Michael looked down. Because they wanted you to believe you had nothing. My hands started shaking. Then I remembered something. 2 months earlier, Dad had called me. He told me he was worried about some financial problems. He asked me if I'd ever consider selling my business. I told him no. He never explained why he asked. Now everything was beginning to make sense, but Michael wasn't finished. There is something else. What? He pulled out a second folder. This is why I came to the wedding tonight. I opened it. Inside were financial records, bank statements, property documents, and several signed agreements. My father's name was everywhere, but there was another name too, my mother's. Michael said quietly, your parents have been transferring money from the family accounts. How much? He looked at me. Over $200,000. I couldn't breathe. Where did it go? Michael closed the folder. That's what I need you to understand. He leaned closer. Some of that money went toward this wedding. I looked toward the reception hall, the flowers, the decorations, the expensive food, the beautiful venue. Suddenly, I realized my family hadn't just humiliated me. They had been using money that legally belonged to me, and I had unknowingly helped pay for my own sister's wedding. I walked back into the reception. Everything looked different now. The same people were laughing. The same music was playing. Sophie was smiling beside Daniel. My mother noticed me. Her face immediately changed. Ethan, where were you? I didn't answer. Dad walked toward me. Son, what's wrong? I looked at him. Why didn't you tell me about the trust? His face turned pale. My mother stepped forward. What trust? I looked at her. You know exactly what I'm talking about. People nearby began looking at us. Dad grabbed my arm. Not here. I pulled my arm away. No, my voice was shaking. You humiliated me in front of everyone tonight. He whispered, Ethan, calm down. Calm down. I looked around the room. You told everyone I'm a failure. My mother interrupted. Because you're acting like one? Silence. I couldn't believe she had said it. Then Sophie walked over. What is happening? I looked at my sister. Sophie, did you know? Know what? About Dad's trust. She looked confused, then she looked at our parents. Her expression changed. Mom, my mother said, don't listen to him. Sophie stepped back. What trust? Dad finally spoke. It's complicated. Michael Reed entered the room. Everyone became silent. He walked directly toward my father. Robert, I think it's time we stop pretending. Dad looked terrified. Michael, this isn't the place. Michael replied, you chose the place. He held up the documents. You signed these agreements. My uncle stood up. What is going on? Michael looked around the room. Ethan has been legally named as the primary beneficiary of several family assets. People started whispering. My mother became furious. That's not true, Michael calmly replied. I have the original documents. He placed them on the table. My sister picked one up. She read it. Then she looked at our father. Is this real? Dad said nothing. Sophie started crying. You told me Ethan had nothing. My mother said, we were protecting you. Protecting me from what? From losing everything? Sophie shook her head. You used his money for my wedding? Nobody answered. That silence was the answer. Sophie covered her mouth. Then she walked toward me. Ethan, I didn't know. I looked at her. For years, I had believed she hated me. But for the first time, I realized she might have been lied to too. She whispered, "I'm sorry." I nodded. "I know." Then Michael said something that made everyone freeze. "There's still one more document." He opened his folder. "This one proves where the missing money went." He placed a bank statement on the table. The room became completely silent. The money hadn't just gone toward the wedding. A large portion had gone to an account nobody recognized, an account controlled by my mother's brother, my uncle. The same man who had been making jokes about me all night. He stood frozen. My father looked at him. "You said that account was for the business." My uncle couldn't answer. Michael looked at him. "It was never a business account." My uncle slowly sat down, and suddenly the person who had been humiliating me all night had nothing left to say. The wedding reception ended early. People left quietly. No music, no laughter, no celebration, just whispers. Sophie stayed behind. Daniel stayed with her. My mother went outside. My father remained seated at the table. For the first time in my life, I saw my father look old. He looked at me. I was wrong. I didn't answer. He continued. "I thought you didn't need anything." I laughed softly. "I didn't need your money, Dad." He looked confused. "Then what did you need?" I stared at him. "Respect." He lowered his head. "I know." "No, Dad." I felt tears in my eyes. "You don't know. You treated me like I was less important because I didn't have a fancy job." He wiped his eyes. I was ashamed. That sentence hurt more than anything. "Ashamed of me?" He nodded. "I wanted both my children to have successful lives." I shook my head. "Success isn't having expensive clothes." I pointed toward the empty reception hall. "It's being able to look at yourself in the mirror without hurting someone else." My father couldn't respond. Then Sophie came over. She hugged me. "I really didn't know." I hugged her back. "I believe you." She cried against my shoulder. "I'm sorry I never defended you." I said, "You were never given the full story." Then she pulled away. "Are you going to take everything?" I looked at Michael. He remained quiet. I thought about the money, the properties, the trust. Everything my parents had hidden. I could have destroyed them. I could have demanded every dollar. I could have taken the family house. But I remembered something my grandfather once told me. He said, "Money can solve problems, but revenge creates new ones." So I made a decision. I told Michael, "I want what's legally mine." My mother looked at me. "And what about us?" I looked at her. "I won't take your home." She started crying. "But I won't allow you to steal from me again." Michael nodded. "That's reasonable." The next few months were difficult. The accounts were investigated. My uncle was forced to return money. My parents had to sell one property to cover part of what had been taken. And the trust was finally placed under independent management. But something unexpected happened. My relationship with Sophie changed. She began calling me every week, not because she needed money, not because she wanted something, just because she wanted to talk. One evening, she asked me, "Why did you forgive them?" I thought for a moment. I didn't forgive them because they deserved it. She looked at me. "Then why?" "Because I didn't want their mistakes to become my personality." She smiled through her tears. "You're different than I thought." I laughed. "So are you." A year later, I stood outside my new office. My business had grown. I had hired several employees. I bought a newer truck. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. Not to my father, not to my mother, not to my relatives, not even to myself. Sophie visited me that afternoon. She brought coffee. She smiled and said, "You know what I remember most about that wedding?" I laughed. "Everything?" She shook her head. "You walking outside alone?" I became quiet. She continued. "You looked like you had lost everything." I looked at her. "But you actually found yourself that night." Her words stayed with me because she was right. That night taught me something I wish I had learned much earlier. Sometimes your family will misunderstand you. Sometimes people will judge you by your clothes, your job, your income, or your mistakes. Sometimes they will make you feel like you're not enough. But their opinion doesn't define your worth. I spent years trying to earn my family's approval. I worked harder. I stayed quiet. I helped financially. I forgave insults. I accepted disrespect because I thought that was what love required. It wasn't. Real love doesn't require you to become smaller so someone else can feel bigger. And family isn't just about sharing blood. It's about honesty, respect, loyalty, and knowing that someone will stand beside you when everyone else turns away. My father and I eventually rebuilt our relationship. It took time. My mother apologized too, not once, many times, and I accepted her apology. But I also learned that forgiveness doesn't mean giving someone unlimited access to hurt you again. I still loved my family. I just learned how to love them with boundaries. As for Sophie, she became one of my closest friends. And every year, on the anniversary of her wedding, we laugh about how the most expensive wedding in our family ended up exposing the cheapest behavior. But there's one thing I will never forget. That night, when I thought everyone had turned against me, one stranger walked up to me and told me the truth. His name was Michael Reed. He didn't save me because he was my friend. He saved me because he believed the truth mattered. And sometimes that's all a person needs. Someone willing to tell the truth when everyone else is comfortable with the lie. So if you're listening to my story and you've ever felt like the unwanted person in your own family, please remember this. You don't have to beg people to recognize your value. You don't have to become someone else to earn respect. And you don't have to destroy yourself trying to prove that you're worthy. Your worth was never decided by them. It was always yours. And sometimes the moment your family tries to break you is the exact moment you finally discover how strong you really are. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and stay with us for more emotional stories about family, betrayal, forgiveness, and second chances. Because sometimes the person everyone underestimates is the person who knows the truth. And sometimes the truth doesn't arrive with a scream. Sometimes it simply walks into the room carrying a lawyer's folder.